China's support policies bring birth increase. China's total population dropped for a third consecutive year in 2024, but a slight increase in the number of newborns demonstrate the outcomes of a national push to build a birth-friendly society and highlights the need for more concrete measures to support fertility, according to experts. The National Bureau of Statistics said on Friday that 9.54 million babies were born last year, up from 9.02 million in 2023 previously. The annual number of newborns had fallen from 7 straight years. However, because 10.93 million people died last year, the nation's overall population dropped by 1.39 million to 1.408 billion. The decrease in the total population was 2.08 million in 2023 and 850,000 in 2022, data shows. Yuan Xin, a professor at Nankai University School of Economics, said that an increase in new marriage registrations for 2023, the auspicious zodiac sign of the Year of the Dragon in 2024, and the rollout of slew of birth-friendly measures contributed to the uptick in newborns. China has been stepping up efforts to build a policy system for supporting fertility since 2021 and has formed a basic policy framework. Naturally, these policies have yielded positive outcomes and resulted in the small increase, he said. China announced in June 2021 that all couples would be allowed to have a third child, and in August that year it amended the law on population and family planning to incorporate related stipulations. 9.54 million babies were born last year in China, up from 9.02 million in 2023. Over the past 2 years, the central leadership has stressed establishing and upgrading policy systems to build a birth-friendly society, Yuan noted. Fertility-supportive policies, technologies, and care and respect for fertility have improved and become more comprehensive, he said. Lu Jiehua, a professor in Peking University's Department of Sociology, said that local governments have explored and rolled out a series of incentives ranging from extending maternity leave in issuing fertility and childcare subsidies. The emphasis put on expanding nursery care services with a goal of reaching 4.5 nursery care slots per 1,000 population by the end of 2025. Is particularly important because it helps address one of the prominent and practical concerns of families, he said. However, experts described the increase as transient and said that in the long term, the annual number of births is bound to fall because the number of women of childbearing age is shrinking. The number of babies born each year will be limited regardless of whether the fertility rate, the average number of babies born to a woman of reproductive age, rises or not, Yuan said. Data released by the Bureau on Friday also showed that the number of people aged 60 or older reached 310 million in 2024, or 22% of the total population. The proportion of elderly had climbed from 18.1% in 2019 and 21.1% in 2023. North Korea nuclear power. What can change for Kim Jong-Un's hermit kingdom? What if the most important phrase in terms of foreign policy Donald Trump had uttered yesterday outside of his inauguration speech? A few hours later, with a group of American soldiers stationed in South Korea, the president asked them in a joking tone, "What does Kim Jong-un say?" And he added that the North Korean dictator would certainly be happy with his return to the White House, being the head of a nuclear power, and having met him several times in the past. He also said that he got along well with him, only that some saw this harmony as a threat. Historic opportunity for Kim Jong-un. Words that immediately made the leaders of South Korea and Japan, North Korea's bitter enemies, jump out of their seats. No American president had ever called the latter a nuclear power. Officially, the United States believes that the nuclear tests conducted by Pyongyang took place in violation of international agreements. It must be said that, on a formal level, Trump has not recognized the status of a nuclear-armed state. But in a Senate hearing, his appointment for Secretary of Security, Pete Hegseth, also used a similar expression to refer to the hermit kingdom. According to some observers, the new Trump administration may take note of the fact that North Korea is now a de facto nuclear power. This would entail disruptive news for Kim Jong-un. They met with Trump 3 times between 2018 and 2019. The American president even set foot in the demilitarized zone and was thus the first tenant of the White House to have formally entered North Korea. Relations between the two broke down for one essential reason. Washington demanded that Kim total denuclearization. This is an unacceptable condition for the communist dictator, who sees the status of nuclear power as an insurance policy for his regime against possible interference even by allies such as China. Until Pyongyang proves that it has dismantled its nuclear arsenal and stops conducting new tests, the harsh international sanctions against it will remain active. North Korean economy in tatters. The North Korean economy is in tatters, especially after the total closure of borders due to COVID in past years. Now that trade with neighboring China has resumed, however, exports have remained much lower than pre-COVID levels, and they were already reduced to the bone. The same applies to imports. The generalized shortage of the supply of goods has triggered the explosion of consumer prices. For example, rice costs 65% more than a year ago, and the exchange rate against the dollar plummeted by more than 60% at the same time, reaching new all-time lows. Only the lifting of sanctions, together with the increase in import-export with foreign countries and greater internal liberalization, would lead to a recovery of the economy. If Trump, instead of demanding denuclearization, limited himself to imposing on Kim Jong-Un the freeze of the arsenal in exchange for an easing of the embargo, the parties would probably reach a shared solution. Pyongyang would stop threatening the region with the now frequent launch of ballistic missiles since 2006, and would thus guarantee better economic conditions for its population. But Washington has to deal with Seoul, first of all. The South Koreans believe that the total denuclearization of the peninsula is essential. We have seen how tense the political climate is in the South. A month and a half ago, President Yoon Suk-yeol introduced martial law, accusing the opposition of being in cahoots with the North Korean regime. The lively street protests made him change his mind after a few hours. He is currently suspended pending the conclusion of his indictment. As if that were not enough, Pyongyang has sent thousands of soldiers to Ukraine, entering the war on Russia's side. And this does not speak in his favor at a possible negotiating table. A choice probably due to desperation, to the need to receive aid from Moscow to survive financially, nuclear power versus the end of the embargo. Compared to his first term, Trump has not only strengthened politically, but he has a team of government loyalists and nothing more to lose. He can afford the luxury of doing his own thing in foreign policy, not least because much of the deep state against which he clashed in his first 4 years as president has packed its bags in view of his return. For Kim Jong-un, it would be a historic opportunity to improve relations with North Korea's historical enemies without renouncing being a nuclear power, even if kept at bay by a possible agreement. With such a limping economy, the end of the embargo would be the most to be achieved.